Many of you know me, my name is Jane Marshall, and I am the current president of OCNA, our local neighborhood association, Oceanside Coastal Neighborhood Association. And we are a group of volunteers that are here trying to help make our community, our neighborhood better. So what we try to do each month is to bring you information from the source, so it quells a lot of rumors and frustrations that could be out there about misinformation. Whether it's from the city, or in this case, developers, whether it's what's happening with crime, all kinds of stuff. Next month, we're going to have actually two speakers, two topics. One is the Neighborhood Watch that Marianne Mikowski, or there she is, she put together, and that'll be very important to see if our group wants to do something like that. And in addition, we're going to have a small presentation from Main Street about PVID, which is basically everyone in a certain area contributing a little bit of money through their taxes that goes to clean streets and extra security and things like that. So there'll be a presentation on that. I'm looking forward to it, and hope you do too. Tonight, we are very pleased to have information on two significant developments in our community, our neighborhood, that are going to impact us in many ways. Some of them are great. You know, they're going to take some areas that are then, you know, not so great and make them better. And some of them we might feel are, it's more, we're getting overwhelmed. So what I'd like to do is not take any questions or any kind of shout outs until the presenters get a chance to do their presentation. And then afterwards, we can ask questions, and hopefully they may have answered them before they're finished. So I think this is Daniel's going to be up first. Okay, Daniel Bertow?
Yes.
Daniel Bertow from Ryan Companies, and they're the ones that did Pierside North and Pierside South. They're also going to do Lot 5 and 20, which are the open parking lots behind the new Mission Pacific and the Wyndham. You know, where the transit, or not the transit tunnel, that pretty tunnel is, okay? So they're going to be on each side of that, and he's going to go through all of that. Following that, we're going to have Arlene Tedrick, and she's going to talk about the Oceanside Transit Center development and where we are and what's happening with that. So without further ado, Daniel, welcome.
Test. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for having me here tonight. My name is Daniel Bertow. I am the Vice President of Development with Ryan Companies. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about the two blocks that we're working on, blocks 5 and blocks 20. Ryan Companies has a long and rich history with the city of Oceanside. We've been involved working with the community for well over a decade, and some of you may be familiar with some of the projects we've done in the past. Those include the Pierside South and Pierside North communities. These were some of the larger mixed-use communities that brought full-time living into downtown Oceanside. In addition to that, we also were builder on Spring Hill Suites, so one of the first Oceanside beach resort hotels that came in, along with the Mission Pacific, the Wyndham, and then the Seabird Hotel. Crossing over to the county, I also wanted to share another project that we've done. This is one that we finished last year. It's the Avalon. It's another mixed-use community that we're very proud of. Community that has multiple uses, something that really shows the quality of what we like to do and how we're contextually sensitive to some of the neighbors that we have. So we're here to talk about Oceanside blocks 5 and 20. Just to give you a sense on the project, it is 2 blocks, 3.5 acres gross. The project site is within a walking distance to the Oceanside Transit Center. It's part of a larger vision to complete downtown. That larger vision included the Oceanside Beach Resort hotels, the 2 Pierside North and South communities, and these are the last 2 blocks as part of that downtown vision. With that, they are currently existing parking lots. They're currently on short-term leases to the city to be used as parking lots. Block 5 will have 193 units in an 8-story building. 10% of those units will be affordable, so about 20 units. Block 20 will be 7 stories, 180 units. Again, 10% of those affordable, so 18 units there. So all in all, we're just under 40 units of affordable units across the 2 blocks. We're also going to have commercial within each of those. Nearly 1,500 square feet at Block 5 and another 2,600 at Block 20. Pierview Way is a pedestrian corridor that currently bifurcates the 2 blocks. This is a pedestrian corridor that you kind of just quickly move through. You'll be at SALT and you quickly want to just get to the other side. So our hope here is to really create something special, and that's where we've located our commercial spaces to really activate the Pierview Way corner, create a destination for folks, create a sense of place. Additionally, we recognize what's going on along the corner of Mission and Myers. So the thought there is, let's complete what's been started with Piper, with the commercial space that's at the Mission Pacific, with Hello Betty, and create another restaurant at that corner as well. So turning sideways here, you can see some of the design features, and you probably saw it in some of the larger exhibits in the back. What we're looking to do is create a contemporary coastal building with varied massing. You look at Pierside North and Pierside South right now, they're 2 communities run together, yet they're very distinctly different. The thought here is that we would be doing something very similar. The 2 projects have different massing, slightly different types of architecture, but ultimately are focused on what the sidewalk experience is going to be. We're focused on bringing the right commercial tenants to really serve as an amenity to the community. Here you go, you can see a site plan of the 2 blocks. Again, we have our leasing spaces here on the edge, and then the 2 commercial spaces that front Pierview Way. We've set back those commercial spaces because there's a large focus on creating an indoor-outdoor commercial experience. We did that at Hello Betty. It's been largely successful there. Same thing again at Mission and Myers with that commercial space. We've also planned some townhomes into the mix. So these would be larger units that could cater towards families. They create a sense of eyes on the sidewalk, so another sense of security that we could create within Myers. And then all the parking gets tucked in behind. There's 1 level of subterranean and then 2 levels of parking above grade. We want to mask that as much as possible from Myers and Mission. In terms of the design, I mentioned those townhomes previously. This is just a conceptual image of another project that I've worked on, where we created that landscaped edge that sort of separates the public and the private realm. So these residents, these townhome units have private stoops, great opportunities to hang out, but at the same time, you can easily connect to everything that Myers and Mission and the hotels have to offer. Here we are jumping up to the roof, and the key thing I want to note here is the massing. It's very different between the 2 projects. On Block 5 here, you'll see a larger U-shaped massing. This is very similar to what you see at the Seabird Hotel, where you have ground floor that really holds the sidewalk edge, and then up above as you go to the 3rd floor and above, the massing steps back tremendously, and it creates a courtyard in the middle. In our case, we would use that courtyard for amenities, pool, spa, maybe a fitness center, maybe a co-work space. We're still determining the programming at this time. Block 20 to the south is a little different. We wanted to do something a little different, and so we have a smaller courtyard that's created, still heavily amenitized with a lot of benefits for the residents. And then we've created a separate, smaller courtyard that's going to be more of a Zen-like feel. Think fountains, think about some of these interior units that have natural light that's being brought into the center of the building. So we started our public outreach efforts a few weeks ago. We met with Main Street Oceanside. We had a public outreach meeting a couple weeks ago at Spring Hill Suites. So we're really at this point right now where we are learning from the community, gathering as much feedback as possible. Some of the early concerns that we heard about were parking. fully understand these are two public parking lots at the moment. The intent here is to fulfill the long-term vision for downtown and replace these parking lots that were always envisioned to be mixed-use communities. In terms of what we will be doing for parking, we plan to, unlike many of the other density bonus projects, we plan to sufficiently park our project. We've learned from Pierside North and Pierside South that Oceanside residents have cars. I recognize the multimodal nature of our community with the transit center and then with the roadside shuttle. But at the end of the day, residents have cars, they will drive. And so we will sufficiently park our projects with enough parking for residents. Our goal is to hit 1 stall per bedroom. So 1 stall for the studios, 1 stall for 1-bedroom units, and then 2 stalls for 2-bedroom units. And then we'll also provide commercial public parking for anybody that wants to visit the restaurants there. Consistency was another key thing. We heard a lot about how can we make this project integrate with the other OBR hotels, Pierside North, Pierside South. And so we're really looking at that both from a larger massing perspective, but also what is this streetscape experience going to be? As you're walking down Mission and you're coming from Pierside North, what does that feel like? If you're at that intersection of Mission and Myers, what does it feel like when you have all 4 commercial corners on each side? What is the experience at Pierview Way? And then types of commercial. Folks really want to understand how we're going to tenant these spaces. And I'll admit we don't know what we're going to do with them right now, but I will say that we plan to design these with as much flexibility as possible. It's too early to select a tenant right now, but the thought is that we're going to put all the provisions in place to get another great restaurant down there. If that's not going to be a restaurant space, we'll at least have those provisions in so that when the market is ready for a restaurant, we'll be ready to put them in there. Landscaping and setbacks were other community concerns that we heard about at Main Street Oceanside and our public outreach meeting. So right now we're working on that. We're looking at what that sidewalk experience is going to be like. A lot of folks pointed towards the Spring Hill Suites, Mission Pacific, and the Seabird as good examples of what that sidewalk experience feels like. So our landscape architect is really studying those opportunities right now. And then social gathering spaces. We hope to create that with these setbacks at the commercial spaces. Additionally, we want to activate Pierview Way, which is currently a corridor that you just kind of blaze right through. We want people to pause and stop there and have a sense of place. And additionally, we're going to be providing a number of social gathering spaces as part of our amenities for residents that live here. And then the one thing that we did hear quite a bit on was construction impacts. And this one is very difficult to, unfortunately, mitigate. But I can tell you this, we have the benefit of building 3 projects in downtown Oceanside. We recognize that it requires a lot of communication. We coordinated very closely with Main Street Oceanside in the past to ensure that any concrete pours, any trucking had as minimal impacts on local businesses as possible. It won't be easy, but I can tell you that we will use our experiences to be to reduce the impacts as much as possible to everyone here. So in terms of what we're doing right now, we're in the process of gathering all this community feedback and analyzing it and seeing how, 1 to 2 minutes?
No, 1/2 time. You're at half time.
Oh, got it. Sorry about that. So we're working right now to gather community feedback. We are, in terms of where we're at in the process, we did do a developers conference meeting with the city last year. That was largely to identify some of the larger department concerns, so fire, utilities, anything related to the adjacent railroad. With that, we did submit an initial application into the city late last year. And right now we are in the public outreach process gathering feedback. The ultimate goal is to hopefully get to a approval later this year with permitting and construction to start later next year. So with that, I'll pause there. If I missed anything, feel free to ask some questions, and I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you. Yes.
So you mentioned the sidewalk experience. So in west of 5, our sidewalks are not adjacent to the street. There's a strip of land called a parkway, and that's where street trees go. So on your designs, I can't tell because it's too small. Is the tree adjacent to the street, or is there a sidewalk between the tree and the street?
Yeah, so we looked at the various conditions. If you look at Mission Pacific, it has a landscape, you have the street, you have a landscaped edge, and then you have the sidewalk, and then you have the building. That's what we're planning to do. If you go to the Seabird Hotel, that one's a little different. That's street, then you immediately have the sidewalk, and then there's a landscaped edge, and then the building. So personally, I prefer a little bit of separation from the sidewalk to the street. I think it gives a little bit more protection as well. So that's one of the things we're studying right now, but the overall intent is to get that landscaped edge right along the curb to create some separation from any parked cars or any cars driving up and down Mission.
It's bigger than that. We're in a historic area. If you have the sidewalk adjacent to the street, it's a suburban track to home area. It's not our historic area. So we really need those parkways, and I'll have to go back and look at Seabird. I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, I look at Seabird, especially along
Yeah.
Mission Ave there, because it's a little different than what you have
Oh,
across
they
the
have
street
it,
with
yeah, they
Mission.
have the drive-in and stuff, but on the other side, I think. they
Yeah,
have it.
we really want to focus on what Mission Pacific and what we did at Spring Hill Suites. I think those are the two sidewalk edge conditions that are most successful.
Because it puts the trees actually on the street, which is where we need them.
Understood, thank you. Yes?
So to her point, trees, shrubbery, that's guaranteed?
Yeah, the city of Oceanside has landscape requirements. We're gonna do our best to, I think landscape is gonna enhance the project significantly. So we're gonna we're gonna meet all the requirements to get the trees in there. I will let you know that there are a ton of utilities in Myers, and so that is one thing that we need to work through. I'm not saying we're gonna provide those trees at all, that is not the intent. We gotta work through and find some of those solutions as we get further along. Yes,
Do you
ma'am?
think underground utilities might be a possibility?
Well, the utilities are already underground in that location.
Oh,
It's just that there are so many utilities buried right along Myers that it's challenging the engineers right now. So we just gotta work to find solutions for stormwater, for getting cable, electricity, water, and all that. It becomes a little bit of a conundrum in some of these downtown projects.
So
Yes, sir.
all of these units are for sale,
No,
are they rentals?
these will be rental. That's our business model.
Okay.
For us, I think the benefit to the community is you don't get out of town buyers coming in with their second homes. You actually have full-time residents that will be looking to utilize the restaurants, utilize the services that
Sure.
are available to us. And we're not, the other thing that came up at Main Street and Oceanside was short-term rentals. That is not our business model as well.
So your HOA will have a 30-day minimum or something too?
It'll be our lease. There will be no HOA because
Oh,
it's not
that's
a
right,
common
it's a rental.
project, but
Thank you.
we will have a
Sure.
management.
So does it,
company.
it'll be managed as a single project then from a rental perspective, instead of two separate properties. Is the underground parking going to be connected, or will they be two separate parking structures underground?
Two separate, because we have Pierview Way that goes under between, so there being no possibility of connecting it.
Right.
She had her hand up for the longest time.
First of all, thank you for recognizing that Southern Californians have cars. But Mission Pacifica and Seabird did a really good job of letting the public know about when streets were gonna be blocked, pouring of cement, by text if you signed up for it. So I don't know if that's part of your plan, but it really was helpful for residents to get a text and know streets that were closed off that day.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I'll make sure we share it with the construction team. We recognize the challenge of construction. Spring Hill Suites unfortunately had its entrance closed off for 2 years because of those hotels under construction. So we want to make sure we're good neighbors to everybody else as well. Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know if you can answer this, but you said that a percentage is reserved for low income.
Correct.
So how does that work if they're rentals?
So,
And who handles that? Do you handle it? Does the city handle it? Like, who takes care of that?
so the units become deed restricted, so by law, we're required to only rent them to folks that make a certain amount of a certain percentage of the area median income, and then it gets audited on an annual basis.
Right, but it goes through your,
Our manager, our operator will be required to ensure and provide all the documentation that those specific renters meet the income requirements.
So we're obviously losing a lot of public parking. Is any of the parking that's going into the buildings going to be publicly accessible, or those are tenants, residents only?
Tenants, residents, and I'd say for the public, for any folks that are gonna be using the commercial spaces.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But the general public that was going down there to park, to shop, to whatever, they're gonna have to go elsewhere.
yeah, but there are a few options downtown, and one thing that we've realized in our discussions with Main Street Oceanside is that Salt has nearly 400 public parking spaces right behind the site.
It's
and
underutilized.
It sits 90% empty from what I'm told.
Agreed.
So I think part of this is educating the community on where the parking options are. Yes.
You mentioned several times that Pierview was a pass-through, and you know, I've been in that area almost daily for 4 or 5 years, and I can see an evolution, and it's actually accelerating, where it's becoming less and less of a pass-through, and in fact, like the corner of Pierview and Cleveland is becoming like a town square. I said, there's musicians there, there's people hanging out, and I think that evolution could, if it was focused, could be a good thing. There isn't a focal point in that part of town, and you have an opportunity to accelerate that, and I think you should recognize that it isn't just a pass-through. There's an evolving culture that could use that walkway even more so as a gathering place.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I apologize if I said it was just a pass-through. What I intended to say was that it was a pass-through along Myers. I do think that there's a lot more activation along the Cleveland corridor, and the hope and the intent was that we could replicate that, and that, as you say, create a catalyst for something more special. That's exactly why we located the retail there. It's exactly why we did some setbacks. The whole idea is that the restaurant space, cafe, whatever it's going to become, can bleed out into Pierview Way. Because right now it is a large open space along Myers. So what can we do to activate it?
But even
Create
in
a sense of
Myers,
place.
you'll see people standing around talking, and it's one of the few places where people do congregate downtown. More so at Cleveland, but also at Myers.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can improve that experience even more.
As the gentleman here just mentioned, as your project has taken over from when it was City Mark and the project has developed, City Mark had recognized that there was a need for like open space for art or music, and you will find people busking on either side of that underpass, the walk-through bridge. So it would be, it would be a great idea to try to find a way to allow that to grow. With under some kind of control so it doesn't get out of hand, but to offer something for arts and entertainment such as that, as it was. The project originally, the original iterations had a lot more open space, but I understand why they have to, tone those down just for economic reasons. But
Yeah.
having amenities, what the project can do for the community as an asset for those that live there, but besides just their residents, but as a destination or at least an attraction for those of us that live walking distance or in these neighborhoods that can, brighten our day, for lack of a better term, is something worth considering.
Oh, definitely.
Two more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a clarification. You talked about underground parking, but I thought you said 2 floors are going to be used for parking.
Correct. Well, we'll have one level underground and then ground level behind the retail and the shops, and then one level above that. So in total, 3 levels of parking, just one of them being underground.
One last question?
I just want to comment on the pier side that is on the north side of Mission. Great architecture. It channels Irving Gill, which is, you know, one of our things that we try to do, but the details on it, the metalwork in that is really great. And I think it's one of our best looking buildings, so thank you for that. The corner that was mentioned is also on that north side, so it's getting the southern exposure, which is gonna make it more amenable. So the more gathering places on that are facing south, the better that's gonna be for those. So you wanna keep that going.
I appreciate that. We brought on a local architecture team. They're called JWDA, based out of San Diego. Large amount of experience in the region. The closest project to Oceanside is the Alila Maria Hotel in Encinitas, just to help ground us. Additionally, we have a consultant team that's really local. Our landscape architect is doing other projects in Oceanside, recognizes how important Urban Arena. They recognize the importance of landscaping in our community, so hence why we brought them on board. And then our civil engineer, SB&O, again, another local group, they worked on some of the other blocks down here. And so they recognize a lot of the challenges with stormwater, beach sand replenishment. That's something that we're also looking at doing as well. So I appreciate the comments on the architecture.
Great.
What is the time frame? Are you going to be doing both at the same time, or 6-month breakup, or what is your?
Yeah, I'd say it's to be determined, but honestly, no two blocks would start together simultaneously from a construction standpoint. So it's likely going to be staggered, 6 to 12 months. You start the first one, 6 to 12 months later, start the second one. The idea being that's the best way to reduce the impacts, because you could use one side for staging while the other one's under construction.
Will you be blocking off that walkway at any point in time with the construction and excavation?
I think there'll probably be select, I'm not 100% sure, but honestly, I think there are always temporary closures associated with construction. But the idea, I think the city and the public would require us, or would want us to make sure that we're leaving that open as much as possible. I don't see how we couldn't do that.
Great. Well, wonderful. Now, again, a lot of these things that are happening and these wonderful, thank you, presenters that are coming, it's not the end. You know, I try to have them back. Arlene's been here earlier or late last year. Now we're gonna have an update. So, you know, just watch the flyers or you know, watch the emails that are sent out so that we can, you know, see how it progresses and maybe offer some additional suggestions. So I want to thank Daniel.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll stick around, so if there are more questions, happy to answer them at the end.
That's great. That's great. And I think on here it says block 520 at RyanCompanies.com. Please feel free to send suggestions or comments there. Take a picture of it if you like, and that way you can feel free that some of your input will be considered. Because they're taking this is the time now to take that input. So we do have a special guest. We have Eric Joyce, District 1 councilman, who's joined us. We want to recognize that. Thank you, Eric.
Hi, everybody.
And I did get a chance to introduce some of our boards, so I'm going to take a short second here. Myself again, president. We have Lane, he's our treasurer. We have Kurt over there, he's our vice president. We have Marianne in the back, she's one of our directors. We have Kevin Ham, he's also our director too. And I think that's it. And we always look for volunteers from everything from delivering newsletters to writing articles to helping with websites, right, Kevin? And not this Kevin, another Kevin. Anyway, so if you're interested in helping us, please see me, or you can go online and email me at ocna101@gmail.com. And then Joan has brought a little bit of information about the native plant tour that just happened on Sunday. It was something that we sponsor with the Audubon Society, and so there's a booth there for you to take a look at.
We have 150 people in 8 groups walking through our neighborhoods, specifically looking at native plant gardens. So we're up to about 30 at this point. So
Way.
20 on the tour, it's 30 total.
So we haven't gone on, it's really fun, it's once a year, it's around this time, and it takes about 2 hours. Free maps.
Take one, please.
And without further ado, I would like to introduce Arlene. She is the representative for the OTC, Oceanside Transit Center, development that is happening, and we are pressing very hard on some of the issues that we feel are affecting the neighborhood. And so, with that, I want to give her the floor so that she can explain what's happening and where we're going with some of the development since the last time we were here. So with that, Arlene, thank you.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Arlene. I've been managing the outreach for the Oceanside Transit Center redevelopment for the last couple of years. I've met with some of you, so good to see some familiar faces and just happy to be able to give an update today. So our last meeting that we hosted was February 1st of this year. So just to orient those of you who are new to the project, starting here on Seagaze and kind of working our way south. This is a new hotel. It's 165 keys. This is a brand new NCTD headquarters that's being built as part of the project. A brand new public parking structure. So Daniel mentioned some of the public parking that's coming to the area, both existing and future, and this is one of those. So there's 800 new public parking spaces within that lot. These are new residential buildings. There are 547 apartments that are planned for the project. We have 15% affordable housing on site. So 10% of that is for low-income households, and the additional 5% are for moderate-income households. And those income levels are set by the state. This is the Station Plaza, and we do have a new customer service center that is being proposed. I'll get into that more later in the presentation, but this is a big deal that we spent a ton of time working on. The customer service center was originally in a different location, and the community really asked us to evaluate that Station Plaza and how it would work together to enhance the transit experience. So really, really excited to dig into that with you all. And then the bus terminals are being relocated from their existing location at Seagaze in Cleveland to over here on the south side near Missouri. We'll get into it. I know there's going to be questions on that, so focus. We started the outreach process in August of 2022, and since then we've been working through the different feedback that we've heard. In February of last year, we launched a series of thematic meetings in which we really honed in on very specific topics that people wanted to learn more about. So architecture and aesthetics, mobility, the transit component, and then the latest was the architectural elements within the Station Plaza. Our next big project milestone is the public circulation of the draft environmental impact report. So if you have heard me speak again, you probably noticed that this document is much later than we initially anticipated it. So we are working through some technical issues with the city specific to stormwater and drainage, and so we're hopeful that that document will be on the streets next week. We do plan on sending a notice out to those who are on our interest list, in addition to the required notification that CEQA has, or that sends through CEQA. So if you're not yet on our interest list, please do that. Our website is osidetransit.com. You can sign up and you'll get that notification.
Could you repeat?
Yes.
How do you get on the list?
Yeah, so if you go to OSIDE, O-S-I-D-E, transit, transit.com, there's a contact us button in the top right corner. Just click on that, you'll fill it in, it'll say add me to the email list, and that's all you have to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are hopeful that we will be at Planning Commission at the end of the summer and be at City Council later in the fall. So that's our overall goal. Through our outreach, our feedback can really be boiled into 3 big buckets. The first is transit operations. We heard a lot about creating this really uniquely Oceanside sense of arrival. People want to make sure that when you either getting off the train or coming from downtown, that you know that you have arrived somewhere special. The other part is a unique terminal experience, which, as I mentioned previously, we we hadn't included. A parking management program. Parking is on everybody's mind. We've kind of had a mixed bag where there's some people who say we should charge for parking so that you incentivize using the transit. Other people think it should be free. Currently, it is planned to be free. And then lastly was concerns over the relocation of the bus terminals. The other piece we talked a lot about with the community is enhanced community character. So making sure that there's consistency with downtown. We know that groups like Main Street Oceanside and their Arts at Excite program are doing a ton of really cool things in downtown. Visit Oceanside and the Chamber and the Arts Commission. There's all these groups that are making downtown Oceanside a really special place to be. So how do we tie into that? How do we bring some of that liveliness to the transit center? Lastly is native landscaping and green screening. Where's Joan? We had a request to change all of the landscaping to be as native as possible. We have removed all of the palm trees from the landscaping plant palette and replaced those with canopy trees. The plant palette isn't 100% native, but we do have a really thoughtful curation of plants that will be successful in this environment, that be beautiful, water-wise, all of the things. So we're really proud of that change too. We also did some additional green screening at Cleveland and Missouri, and then some additional parkways and beautification along Tremont to enhance the pedestrian experience, like James. And then lastly is circulation. So lots of comments about multimodal transportation and how do bikes, pedestrians, cars, bus riders, all of those different modes, how do they get around safely and efficiently and not hinder transit operations, but also make it a really great place to visit. There we go. Okay, so a big thing that I wanted to update everybody on is our wayfinding and gateway signage program. We did get lots of requests for public art, so we have 6 locations identified that could lend themselves to public art, as well as 2 mural locations. We have been in talks with Main Street Oceanside to look at what existing programs there are out there. Because Oceanside is one of 14 cultural districts in the state, there's a lot happening in the public arts realm, and so we don't need to recreate the wheel on that. We're just really looking to work with those existing programs and partnerships to make sure that the transit center connects into what's already happening, like I said. This is just a very, it's dot soup, there's a lot of dots on this, but it's really just to show we want to cover the entirety of the transit center with a really comprehensive wayfinding program. So NCTD has their operational signage that will absolutely happen, but also given that there's retail included in the project, there's a hotel, there's public parking, there's lots going on with the new proposed design. So how do we make sure that whether you're a local or a visitor or a commuter, that you know how to get around efficiently? Currently, it's kind of challenging to get around the transit center, and so really looking to how do we enhance the placemaking and the wayfinding through this signage program. A big part of that is our gateway signage. You can see here by these 3 dots, I'll spend a little time on them, not too much, but because I want to be mindful of our time, but right here, this first purple one is really where we spent a lot of time looking at how we could create that welcoming sense of arrival into the transit center. So we looked at historical references. These pictures up here are of the original train station quite a while ago, and married that together with NCTD's branding. This is a preliminary concept that we showed at our February 1st, 2024 meeting that creates kind of that welcoming. This is what it would look like at nighttime. We are revisiting this design based on the new mural concept that Art That Excite is coming forward with. So again, we want to make sure that that entryway is really special and welcoming and making sure that it all fits together. So more to come on that. The other thing we spent a lot of time on over the last year is the design of this station plaza. So we heard a lot from the community about wanting this to be kind of a park-like environment where there could be opportunities for small events or music or art or just bringing people in, just a welcoming place to hang out, as well as this customer service center. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Station Plaza Tower. Currently, when you're out at the transit center, there are 3 different towers that have the North County Transit District logo on them. We did a poll at our last meeting in which we're reimagining what that tower can look like. What the community voted on was that it could be more artistic in nature, so something that's really iconic to the space and similar to the mural and the public art, really using the arts program to help us with the design of that tower. So in our current entitlement package, going through the approval process, we have the location identified. It'll be a 60-foot tower. We have kind of the nuts and bolts that we need for this portion of the process. And then there'll be a future process in order to design it, in which we'll get more public feedback on what that can look like. This was the original rendering of the customer service center. So it was initially nested within one of the residential buildings, and the community was very clear that they hated that. So we have since removed it and relocated it to that station plaza. So we're really excited about that. It was right here before, at the, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it was at the toe of this building, and we've pulled that out. In April of 2023, we hosted the first iteration of our discussion about this, and we did get some early feedback of what kind of look and feel people wanted to see, and then we spent the following year kind of working through what those design elements could be. So what people wanted to see was lots of natural light, interesting roof lines, a mix of materials, something that felt very natural and very oceanside, but that was interesting and unique and fun and beautiful. So these were the 3 conceptual, these are on our website as well, ossidetransit.com. These were the 3 conceptual images that we presented. The community voted the most for option 1, so that's the one that I've blown up on our slides. So when you're coming down Cleveland, from either from downtown or from the new parking structure, this is the view that you'll see. There are public bathrooms included in here. There's lots of safety features that are woven into that to help with some of the security challenges that we were notified of. And then there's also opportunity for public art, like I shared before. This is the view that you'll see from the train tracks. There's some really cool sighting effects that we're working on now, so that no matter when you come to the transit center, we'll play with light and shadow and color and lots of fun things. So again, just that really unique and special arrival point. So we're really excited about where we've come with the project. I know a project of this scale doesn't always happen all the time and can create lots of questions. So we're proud of where we come and how we've been able to incorporate community feedback while also making sure that we're delivering to NCTD a state-of-the-art facility that will support their needs for transit operations now and into the future. Like I mentioned, our next step is that draft EIR, so we encourage you to sign up for our email list so that you're notified of that. So with that, I will take questions. You were first. Quick on the draw.
I'm relatively new
Sure.
to the area.
Yeah.
And with all the apartments that are being built and all of that, narrowing Coast Highway, it seems to me you're increasing population and you're reducing traffic paths. It sounds like it's headed toward a golf cart kind of environment.
Okay.
Are you making accommodations for people who just want to go down the street, but you don't want to get in their car because of the lane and the traffic and, you know, are you making accommodations in the parking structure for golf carts? Are you doing
That's a great question.
line things? I
Sure.
know they have bicycle things, but would that include also golf carts if people wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Because the more population you have coming in and the less highway on Coast Highway, reducing that people want to go to those stores, they're gonna buy a golf cart. I mean, that is my thought.
Sure. Okay, so the short answer is no, we don't have designated golf cart parking. However, we have spent a lot of time with the Oceanside Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and their feedback has been really helpful in really looking at the multimodal circulation. So to your point, if it is harder to get around in a car, how are we prioritizing the pedestrian and making it safer, more efficient to get around? We also have looked into the Go Side Shuttle program. So there are designated pickup and drop off areas for that shuttle and for Uber and Lyft and things like that. But we've also looked at dedicated parking within the parking structure of how we might be able to support that project going forward. With bike and pedestrian, what's the word I'm looking for? Support, I guess, for just getting out of your car. We do have a mix of public and private bicycle storage. We also have a location identified where a bike share program could also go in the event that the city were to develop that program. So kind of looking what's out there now, how do we make sure that that infrastructure exists, and then how do we plan for the future and make sure that there is space to accommodate when future amenities or like micro-mobility options come forward. I can't speak to where the golf carts are gonna go on Coast Highway, but
Well, you reduced it, and you still have, parallel parking instead of angular parking, which would allow for more cars, because you're reducing the parking area with the bike.
so on Cleveland, we don't have street parking on Cleveland. We have sharrows. So North Cleveland and South Cleveland have shared. They don't have designated bike lanes. So in talking through what that bike circulation looks like with the bike and pedestrian committee, they talked about educating the community on the use of sharrows. Do motorists understand how those work and yielding to bikes and et cetera. So all that is in process.
Okay, next question?
Yeah.
I'll go.
Okay.
The large eucalyptus trees on Tremont Street, any ideas of what's gonna happen to those?
Yes. So it is highly likely that those will have to be cut down. We did hear at our February meeting that people don't like that. So what we're looking at currently, or what the civil engineers are looking at, is what are the limits of disturbance for grading. Eucalyptus trees typically have pretty shallow roots, and so if their roots are damaged during grading, then, because we do have subterranean parking as well. On Tremont, the building is 5 stories, is what it will look like, and then there's subterranean. And so if we're building for subterranean, the potential to damage the roots is likely. So that's something that we are looking at. I don't have a definitive answer, but it's not likely that they'll stay.
I have just 2 questions.
Yes.
What was the decision, what went into the decision making to put the bus terminals on the south side away from the more urban environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, very good question. So that relocation of the bus stalls was in the initial RFP, request for proposal, from North County Transit District. So it was one of their early requirements. And the reason they wanted that is because this pedestrian pathway right here gives a direct line of sight and quicker pedestrian access between the 2 modes. So what they were seeing, their operations folks were seeing, was that people were either missing their bus or missing their train. So it was quite a far walk from the Cleveland location to this to this train platform. And so they asked that that be relocated.
Wow. Okay. And my other question is, who's going to be responsible for security and maintenance on these NCTD sites?
On the public space, like the plaza and things like that, NCTD's maintenance department or operations team will be responsible for that.
Yeah, I just noticed a lot of the buildings, I mean, the paint's gone, for skateboarding and whatever, vandalism, it's not very good.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the beauty of having a brand new facility. I mean, right now, there's no one out there. They have a small office on Tremont, but they're relocating their entire headquarters here from Mission to here. So that on-site visibility and that on-site management was a big priority for them. And so, and there's gonna be apartments and toll management and people living there. So the amount of attention, we'll say, it will be quite different.
I mean, I just wanna point out that,
Yeah.
you know, the areas that have been developed, they have private security that
Mhm.
kind of manages it and they maintain it. So in terms of a nice quality environment, is NCTD planning on maintaining and providing security like the other commercial entities in that downtown area?
I am not sure, but so what I do as part of the feedback process is I share the feedback that I hear from the community if it's directly related to their operations. So Toll's role in the process is to build the space, make sure that we're able to accommodate those community concerns where we can, and that we're also meeting NCTD's needs, and then they'll manage their own programming. So security is something that we've talked quite a lot about with them.
Okay, next question?
Yeah.
So, as you know, there's a lot of questions to ask. We have some concerns about traffic impacts, safety impacts, as well as other significant impacts. For example, just the other day, the large condo complex that is closest to the track, I was just talking to the HOA president there, and they hadn't really heard a lot about the project, and there's some impacts that they want to understand as well, and solutions. So might I ask that if the OCNA board and you and Mike Winter can get together again to further delve into some of these issues to see if we can come up with some solutions?
Yeah. Mike Winter isn't on the project team anymore, but myself and Mike McCann, another Mike, will be happy to meet you. Sure, you know how to find me, both people. Great. Yes. Blue shirt. Yes.
The pedestrian, for lack of a better name for it, the pedestrian underpass that goes under the tracks, is that being re-envisioned at all?
It is, but not as part of the project. So Jane and friends, yes, please, Jane, take the victory.
All right, so North County Transit District recognizes that it's an eyesore and has other issues. And so what we, and as I'm also part of Main Street Art That Excites that does all the murals. And in addition to the one that Arlene was talking about the north face of the parking structure, North County Transit District has already put forth a grant, is working with Main Street, and actually a request for proposal is going out for an artist coordinator that'll start this in motion to re-envision that into an Instagrammable space that people want to go to.
Okay.
Which includes decor, light, security, sound, everything.
I'm probably the only one here that takes the train 20 times a month, 4 times a month to Los Angeles, down to downtown. Sometimes I bring my bike, put it on the train. Other times I drive my car and I park it there. So I have a real intimate feeling with this space. The bike, I'm gonna call it the bike freeway that runs along the tracks. It goes right through the middle of our town. It's a great piece of infrastructure. Everybody on their bikes stops at Wisconsin coming north, crosses into the neighborhood and goes up. When that bike path takes you all the way to the train station, people's usability tells you something about that underpass. That it's a pain in the butt to get there with your bike, get off and do this zigzag like you're in a ride at Disneyland to get to the other side to ride it. So if there's some way to separate the bike to make it, you can't have it high speeds, you got people walking, but if there's some way to make that transition easier, it'll make that bike path more usable.
Well, they're not gonna change the structure, they're only gonna beautify it.
Yeah, right, so, yep. Unfortunately, so at some point in the future, that should be looked at because it's not conducive and it's gonna get more use as they build that bridge over, Bataquitos or whatever that is, yeah.
Right, okay, one more question.
Are there gonna still be the same amount of parking spaces for people that do use the train to commute?
There will be more parking spaces. So currently oh goodness, I'm not gonna guess. I have it in my notes, but I do not remember. So
400 something.
so my guess is what's out there now, those big surface level lots. We're not only replacing what's there now, but we're adding extra. So our new public parking structure will have 800 spaces. And that's separate from the residential, their guest and private parking.
Okay, one more.
Point real quick. On the trees that are gonna get cut down, if you look at the east side of Tremont, there's a lot of places where there are no street trees. So every street should have a tree succession plan. We wait till a tree's big and beautiful and old and it dies and then we have nothing. So if maybe you guys could work with those guys to get trees in. I never understand why developers don't put a ton of trees in and then develop, because everybody's much happier
Okay, just so
that
that
way.
you know, OCNA is working with the city on their Tree for Tree program, and SDG&E that offers it to residential neighbors. So that's coming up, that's not something, so it is on the city,
But it would benefit NCTD to take an active role.
right.
Yeah.
And provide labor and whatever to make that happen. That would be very helpful. And I also just want to say, the more parking we provide, the more cars come here, the more traffic we get, and the more everybody complains. So there's no end to it. I just want to make that.
Well, and that tension, or that kind of, that tension, that's what we're seeing in our community outreach, right? So for every Joan Bachman who says we should have, or Mike Bullock and other kind of parking advocates in town who say we should have less parking because then people will ride their bikes and walk and buy golf carts. You have the flip side of that where people say, well, if I can't park downtown, then I'm not gonna come, and then that will impact the business. And so we have looked at what parking management looks like on the site because there's different users now. So the residential will have one parking program, the hotel will have its parking program. And so really looking holistically at the users and figuring out what kind of management program works for each of those user groups. So that's something that's in process. Currently, like I said, the public parking structure is envisioned to be a free parking structure, but given the back and forth that we've heard about this issue, we are what we're calling future-proofing. So the space for, if we needed to put a kiosk in, or if we needed kind of the infrastructure as parking and mobility evolves, that parking structure could evolve along with it. So, yeah.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank Arlene and
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you. So many questions, and they're working on answers, and it's just a whole big tornado of input that they're trying to assimilate into something that can actually be moving forward. Yeah.
Sorry. I will leave a little stack of our business cards in the back. There's a QR code on it that takes you straight to the website, and also our outreach email is on here, so you can email me, reach out anytime. Happy to grab a coffee or lunch or whatever and chat through any issues that you have.
All right, so I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the two presentations and have a little bit more straight from the horse's mouth information. And it's up to us that live here, to make a difference, and the only way we can make a difference in this is to show up and speak up about things and concerns to make our area better. So it's important that, I want to say, don't be shy. Put your voice out there, put your good ideas, and let us help make this community better for all of us, okay? So thanks all for coming. Now, I have a favor. If each of you could help put your chair up on the rack, we really appreciate it. And I want to wish you good night and see you next month.